What a weird connection.
Good, we're all having it tonight.
Oh, I guess I could have kept trying then.
Okay, so minute. Attachment.
How about roll call?
Yeah, roll call.
Yeah, roll call again.
Again.
Who's saying this?
Chris.
Oh,
And
I don't see your name anywhere, so.
I got the roll call from just the tiles. We're good.
Yourself, Daniel, Brian, Eric, and Chris. Chris is here then?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, Jesse, Chris is on the phone with you and me, so the three of us are on one
Okay.
phone. That's why.
Awesome, yeah. I didn't know if that was Pelletier or Perez.
Chris.
Yeah. Cool. So I just got for the minutes from Natasha. I added those in for the last one. I know you said what is and what was people's role in the lower down a minute, and then I don't know the answer to those, so I guess we'll find out when we find out, and then we can add that. But any other things?
I'm having a lot of understanding.
Jesse, I don't know. I mean, do you want to take a few minutes and call in on your own? And because I've added you. Yeah.
Is it possible for everyone to put on headphones?
But that feedback is probably coming from you, Jesse, joining in two formats.
Yeah.
So if you jump off that and just stay on the phone, that's going to fix that problem.
Is that okay?
Can you guys hear Jesse?
That's a lot better. And there's no echo, less echo now.
Yeah, that works for me.
All right. Take 500. I don't know. What are going on? Let's do this.
Oh, yeah, technology. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we were just discussing the minutes. I have Atashna's edit. Does anyone else have any edit?
Nope.
Thank you. Want to move to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Thing.
Second.
Okay, and do we have anyone from the public tonight who would like to comment? So that. All right, let's move on. First item on the agenda is just Barker Meadows Park. Hopefully this will be the last one for at least a month on this one. We've just got a few grant submission updates. So Miranda and I met with Madison yesterday. She's the GoCo project manager, just to get final feedback. And we are submitting tomorrow. So there was just only been a couple of tweaks since we last all talked about it. I can even read you since yesterday, I added one sentence, which was basically, if GoCo funds are awarded for this project, the City of Boulder has pledged to fund new restrooms at Barker Meadows Park. This in-kind contribution depends on the area's rehabilitation and considerably raises the stakes and urgency for Nederland. So that was about it. We just have the site photos and the site map, letters of support, timeline, and the budget, the narrative. So that is
John finally made it.
Hey, John. Awesome. We have everyone.
Hi, John.
Didn't miss much. You just missed a lot of feedback. So that's it. Miranda, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, I just want to thank
Nikki
really
or
hard.
Eric?
highlight and thank Jessie for all her hard work and taking kind of the lead on this from ProSab. I'm super excited that we're at the end and we're ready to submit. And I feel very confident about this grant cycle. So fingers crossed. Send good vibes to GoCo.
Somebody have a comment?
Good job, Jesse. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been a whole lot of work, and just everybody cross your fingers now. I know one of the kind of criticisms was that it wasn't a very exciting plan when we spoke to the BOC, but that's kind of the point of this project in particular, that it is essentials rather than things that we want. So that works.
That's also what GoCo likes to see.
Yeah, so that's good.
Well, they understand that the bot understands that this is going to go in phases, correct?
Yes, and from being added, you could keep building on this for forever. And hopefully we would really going to use this as some leverage to start talking about AmeriGas property soon.
So how would acquisition of that property happen? Would it be like a proposed price to AmeriGas, or would it be some kind of eminent domain-esque claim, or has anyone communicated with them yet about that property?
We were told.
They've known for years, Dan, they've known for years that Nederland wants to acquire that. There has been discussions, I believe, with the heirs attorney. However, it's on hold. It's on hold right now because the heir does not want to sell, and there's also the lease with the excavating company had been renewed a short time ago. I believe it's a 5-year lease. So they do know that the town is interested. So it's just waiting right now, I believe.
I think that's kind of the some information.
Let me interject. AmeriGas is the one who just renewed their 5-year lease with the Browns Family Trust.
Thanks for bringing me up to speed on that.
In goals, because I think we're going to need full. Oh dear. Sorry. Yeah, so just get more information about that, I suppose.
I unfortunately only heard that last sentence.
That was about all of it. Now I am coming now on the phone here with Miranda. Just doing this via the phone. I don't know why my audio is not working because it says it is. But let's move on should we just move on real quick to the non-profit parks? I don't have a whole lot to add about this either.
I'm not hearing anything.
Neither am I.
Yeah.
Here, Jesse.
Yeah.
guys hear Jesse and myself and Chris?
Jesse's been breaking up pretty badly, but it seemed like for the last couple of things she said, it sounded better.
I can only hear Chris.
Jesse just said we'll move on to the nonprofit parks topic.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Which I don't have a whole lot to add about for this one since I've just been working with Barker. So, and I've lost my chat function now that I'm on the phone too. So, anyone want to add anything?
Can somebody tell me what she said?
I'm just wondering if, I don't know if somebody else, not saying wants to step in and lead this meeting since while we sort out Jesse's issues. Dan, Brian, Eric, while we help Jesse solve these problems.
So we have moved on. Do I understand that we've moved on to the discussion of Nederland nonprofit parks? So the Red Rink tennis court and the skate park and the site. Does this include the idea of bringing a bike park somewhere to town? Is that, or no? That's the next agenda item. I see. Do we know who makes up the various boards of Ned Rink courts and the skate park? Are there boards meeting regularly?
Yeah, so we actually did, Ned Rink did just reach out to town to find out like what the COVID requirements are for them. So I'm happy to share that contact information, but they are meeting regularly, all those boards.
And we don't have a formal mechanism for bringing those folks onto these ProSab meetings. So is that something that maybe would be a first step to get those folks here on a regular basis so that we can consider them kind of part of the purview of ProSab?
Yeah, I'm happy to send kind of just an introductory email and maybe I'll put Justin on it. So connecting them to our board.
And I imagine that
all three.
I imagine that they have bylaws. Is that true?
Yes.
And do we know where we can find them?
I might have them on the server. Let me do a little searching. If not, I'll just ask them our contacts for them. This is Ned Rink
because
the skate park. Hello.
Right. Yeah, I have just no idea how those boards are formed and what their requirements are for how many people need to be on them and what their structure is. So it's really difficult to say how we can integrate what we do with what they do because I don't personally know what it is exactly that they're up to.
Yeah, let me do a little searching. I'll send an intro email just at least so we can start that, and then let me look. I'm sure somewhere on file we have their bylaws.
Would the point of bringing all these nonprofit groups together with ProSab to, at some point in the future, primarily for funding purposes and shared vision, establish a recreational district so that the various facilities can be maintained and improved under one umbrella instead of fragmented? That's a question.
Well, I understand it, at least. The way that a recreational district would function would be to broaden the scope outside of town boundaries. And to work with these folks, we don't need to do that. And so as it currently stands, they could simply come to us and we could coordinate town funding within town boundaries for Ned Rink and the tennis courts and and for the skate park. It's only if we went outside of town boundaries that we would really need to form another kind of pseudo-governmental entity, which is what a special district really becomes, that's allowed to levy taxes. And that becomes a more complicated issue, I think, for lots of reasons, and it would even remove some authority from the town in managing these resources. So I think that would be something we'd have to do very, very carefully, and not just do it because it seems expedient.
I could envision it though, as an end result sometime in the future, because it just seems like the town financiers seem to be very precarious, and trying to repair, maintain, and enhance by bringing in more opportunities. It seems like the town is not in a position to really sustain any of that, which is why I can see a rec district coming into play somewhere down the line, at least getting the ball started.
Yeah, I think one thing also is that in order for a rec district to be funded, it would need to levy some kind of a tax, which would need to go on a ballot somewhere. And so that is also something that the town of Nederland could do, right? I mean, we already are in a position where we can put on the ballot the idea of levying a tax specifically for recreation and better funding this board and our Parks and Rec sort of program within Public Works. We could do that without necessarily forming a special district. And if a special district was formed, they would need to do that anyway. My concern about special districts is that they often become dominated by special interest, especially when they go beyond the municipal boundaries of a town that they reside in. And so I do think we need to be super careful about that.
Well, I think an excellent example that is a guidepost for us or the town for the future is the library tax district. That seems to encompass just enough area that everyone who benefits from all the facilities of the town and considers the town their town. I know I reap the rewards, and I live 6 miles out of town. So I think the library district has set a good precedence for any maybe future districts.
Yeah, I agree, and especially if it's set up, because it becomes a kind of the pseudo governmental entity, right? That's allowed to levy taxes, but is not a municipal government, and so that's essentially what the district is, right? And then I think that if we are very careful about the way that it's worded and what actually goes on the ballot and the way that people understand it, then it could potentially be a big benefit to us. What I would personally like to avoid is a district that kind of ranges a bit too far, right? And like people have even suggested the district might extend all the way to Gilpin, right? And a district that ranges too far can bring in interests that are not the town's interests, right? And then the town becomes, a kind of a potential zone for exercising special interest and even profit making, right? Which I don't think is something that we want to be encouraging.
Yeah.
And oversight can become an issue with these groups too, the special district groups. I know we've got at least 3 in Netherlands, probably a lot more.
Yeah, we would, as ProSab, as this board, would lose oversight of that district because it would not be a town entity anymore. It would be a separate entity that operates independently and would have its own board that's elected in its own way, independent of the board of trustees and independent of the town of Ned. So it's definitely something to like look into, but to consider very carefully.
Yes, somewhere in the future. I think it is worth looking into at some point in the future.
I think, I mean, that's part of our financial discussions. We've always been interested in exploring funding, and whether that's through a financial district or levying a tax in some other place. I think that is something that we want to look into in the future for sure.
However, if it's just the town and the town residents voting on taxing themselves, that would be very unfortunate because there's a large population that is not within the town limits that uses all the facilities, and I think to a certain extent really carries a lot of the financial means that does sustain the town. I'm a former business owner in Nederland, and at that time, and I think pretty much still, the majority of businesses in Nederland are owned by people who do not live within the town limits. And everyone in the area, in the Boco vicinity of Nederland, from Ridge Road to Magnolia Road, reaps all the benefits, and to a certain extent pays nothing for them. So I think it's something to put on for discussion for a future date, not to let it drop, but to maybe just put it at the bottom of the list once we go through everything else that's a priority. It's something to seriously consider.
Yeah, there's also property value outside of town, and because of that, a mill levy would likely be more effective in a lot of neighborhoods that are outside of town limits rather than neighborhoods that are in it, in that it would raise a lot more revenue. So it's definitely something that's possible. But because these recreation areas are so kind of fundamental to the town's character, right? I mean, these are things that we see that are very visible, that we see every day, and that are make up sort of the geography of the town. And so if there was this separate entity that was elected independently of town government, it could significantly modify the character of the town without the town really being able to say much about it. I think that's where I would draw the line, and I think we need to make sure we're very careful.
Okay.
Put all that in structure.
Pardon? Okay, so that we'll definitely add future fundraising for Parks and Recreation into future discussions. Somebody speaking? And I missed how we kind of got discussion about this. Was this through just funding for a Nederland non-profit park? I think this is another reason why we really need to connect with them and see how they are funding those parks, the non-profits.
Yeah, you might have been off the call at the time, but I think Miranda or someone suggested that we invite some representatives from those different nonprofit parks to a future ProSAB meeting just to have a discussion with them. And Miranda thought she had the details of the right people to contact.
Yeah, I have contact information for all the boards. So Jesse, I'm going to do an introductory email with you on it, just kind of connecting everyone to each other.
Yeah, fantastic. Because hunting down their emails and contact information has been really difficult.
They actually just reached out to us to get some kind of COVID updates on how they can discuss how they can open. So we have it all now. So I'll do those introductory emails.
Great, and then let's plan for a big November meeting then, and see if we can get as many people to join and have a really big discussion about this.
Let's see if we can have it inside of the building.
That would be nice.
Jesse, the agenda said something about the board planning for fact-finding goals for the November stakeholder meeting. So what did you have in mind when you talked about that? Are we doing that right now, or is that something we should be more structured about?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we could try and spread out some of this information that we want to find out. I mean, this will be really helpful just having their contact. Maybe let's brainstorm a few facts that would help us. And I know how their funding will be huge, kind of what their need, like what the skate park and the Ned rink and the tennis courts, what their needs are. And then maybe just put together some information about their history, some of the quantifiable data about how much use they see or what kind of users they see.
It would also be really good to have any, mission or vision statements that they are operating by, or at least when those boards were founded and whenever these. I assume that they're incorporated 501c3s. Is that the case, Miranda?
It is with Ned Rink. I know that much.
Yeah.
So mission statements, bylaws, and just to have all this stuff accessible, and that we could direct people to especially for the skate park, the incidents, we could, at least have them, we could direct them to a place where they could seek the information that they're looking for about materials or reasoning why bikes are not allowed.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's something I'm still happy to volunteer for, is to help put together sort of an FAQ section on the town website to kind of either answer questions directly or direct people to the actual other organizations who can answer those questions. But I think getting the right people in the room and kind of starting to gather some of the info that we and others are interested in is the first step.
That's Brian, right? Well,
yeah.
I'll send over. I found a few links about the skate park, so I'll send over like the few little links that I found just to take a look at.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. I'm happy to take that on and take some stuff off your shoulders.
And part of that is just like I found a little article from when the skate park was installed, and it was just about how it got its name, Nathan Lazarus Skate Park, and who that is, and kind of the whole history behind it, which I think would be interesting to have as part of the Parks and Recreation website, or, informational.
Yeah, definitely.
And, the question has still never really been answered as to what the reasoning really is behind not being allowed in the skate park. Like, we still don't really know the answer, I feel like. So to really lock that down would be good, because I, at this point, don't even feel comfortable with any policy because we don't have adequate information to make a policy. It just seems to be a series of personal opinions on the matter, which I think is problematic.
No, it was all established in the beginning when we opened the park.
I mean, that is what we've heard multiple reasons for that establishment.
Is it the coping or the PSI strength of the concrete, or is it safety?
Or is it safety? Like, what is it?
It's both the safety and the copings and what the bikes and things do by scraping upon it, and the damage that the rubber from skidding and stuff with the skateboard wheel is totally different. It can cause the skateboard to wipe out the skid marks from the bikes.
So this ties into kind of,
part of building the whole thing, and that's why we did that, and also for insurance reasons. For somebody who's on a bike hits a skateboarder or vice versa, the insurance costs them 5 times more.
Is it? So if a skate hits another skate, that costs less than a skate hitting a bike. That's interesting. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't recognize all the voices yet, but was that one of the Chris's talking?
That's Chris Perret.
Okay. Hey, Chris Perret, this is Brian. If you, a lot of this information is still kind of legend and folklore, but do you know if there's something that was written? Is there like any sort of documentation dating from those days that I could put onto that FAQ just to answer questions for folks?
and send me or text me your email stuff. I'll have Randy Lee send you all that.
All right, I'll do that right now.
Great, because that would be really helpful as just for ProSab to be able to give an official answer about why bikes are not allowed, even if they have rubber pegs, you know, or things like that. And then we'd just like to ease the enforcement for help take the burden off of the police and off of Teens Inc., I think, and Public Works, of course.
I think also all that information needs to be codified and accessible somewhere for the general public, so that people now and in the future don't have to be, as Brian had said, folklore, hearsay, and wading through, you know, the yellow brick road.
Yeah. Great. So
Absolutely.
is that, like, let's just make sure we have the information that maybe we want to find out. So then that is about kind of the construction, the building materials, kind of safety concerns.
Yeah, let me
maintenance
see
concerns.
what there is first by way of information that gets shared back to us, and then I think we can look at that either individually or as a
And then
group
see what we
and
still
say,
need.
yeah, exactly.
Well, that sounds good. Great. And then kind of it's just the same thing goes with Ned Rink and tennis, really, just to find out about the history of it and the building materials and the upkeep and the maintenance and just the whole system, and have that codified and documented too. Great. Would anyone like to add some more about this two non-profit parks discussion? Well, I can quickly move on to the Nederland Bike Park. I've been just back and forth with the excavation company, Jesse Sievers. So we've been playing a bit of phone yo-yo this week. So we were planning on discussing, meeting up on Tuesday and discussing the bike proposal, but that didn't happen. But I do know that he's still very much interested in the idea and is still eager to pledge, $20,000 of excavation services towards building a bike park. So we need to just keep open our engagement with the town, I think, about that particular piece of property next to the Ned Rink and tennis court. But I'd be interested to hear thoughts. Hello?
And this will be in town limits, correct?
Correct.
That's right next to the skate park, right next to the skating rink.
Yeah.
Okay, that's off of Ridge Road, right?
Okay. No, it's Indian Peak.
School Road. Yeah.
Oh, on School Road. Oh, okay.
Indian
Okay.
Peak
So
for the Caribou Ridge subdivision.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
So what are the next steps for that?
I think we just really need to nail down kind of an official proposal from this excavation company as to what they would pledge to do. And I know that our Public Works are very willing to kind of collaborate on this. I think it's something that they're quite keen on doing. Maybe a few things that would be good for us to do in the meantime is kind of identify and have some reasons of why this is a good location for a skate park. And a few other things like that. Yeah, bike park, excuse me. Yeah, one of them being close to all those bike trails. It's close to the mud lake. It's accessible by bike. It's accessible bike trails to the elementary school.
It already has facilities like restrooms. Already has parking.
That's right.
Already has power and water.
Yeah. Yeah, it has parking, restrooms, power and water, and then it would relieve some of the pressure on the infrastructure down in the Chipeta Park area by just spreading it out a little bit more. You've got this focused northern recreational zone and then the eastern one.
So we have all the pros. I think it may behoove us to look at what any possible cons may be that might be brought up, so that we could address those as well.
Yeah, good idea. I mean, one that comes to mind, maybe neighborhood. Maybe the neighborhood would not be keen on increasing usage of the area, but maybe they would.
Biggest thing is insurance.
I know back in the days of the first GoCo grant, there were some conspiracy theories that it was Tin Shed who was behind the push for a bike park, and they thought they were sort of trying to redirect town funds as their private interests. I could imagine that this might stir up some similar concerns amongst some of the population.
Yeah, and maybe just environmental concerns too, the loss of trees.
All the more reason for, I mean, at this point, putting the can't remember what you call it, but putting the bike park controversy behind us in terms of when it was proposed by the teen center in the park, I think it would be right now, the reason why this has come back up and we are addressing it is not just because of the excavators fantastic proposal, but also this is being parent driven. So, and the parents are the stakeholders for the kids. So rather than maybe focusing on the tin shed conspiracy theories, I think if that does come up or anything like it, it would be best for us to redirect all the focus back onto this is a parent driven proposal, which is why it is being revisited.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it comes back down to just informing the public and having things like FAQs to point people to say, hey, what are we talking about doing? Why are we talking about doing this? Where is it going to be? How's it getting paid for? And I think that just in communicating with people can allay a lot of those concerns.
Yeah, I think making sure people realize this is a community-led discussion, and then doing whatever we can to get. I know there's a lot of people. What was his? I forget his name. Who contacted us last week? But the chap who contacted us with the public comment about the skate park enforcement and about being kicked out. He gathered quite a number of people around him. So whether we could get all those people on board and commit to. That was it, Nicholas Brodsky. Yeah, maybe get these people committed to being further involved and helping with fundraising and the volunteer work, and really turn this into kind of a community-built project.
I don't think that this should be ProSab driven. It should be parent driven. It should be stakeholder driven under the guidance of ProSab. We should not be the primary. There should be a group of parents, a group of stakeholder parents who are driving this under the aegis of ProSab.
So we could be the conduit for the parents, but I can work on a document to consolidate all this information and maybe just listing all involved parties, all interested parties.
Excellent, yeah.
Environmental concerns and everything you just mentioned, all the benefits and potential cons. And we can just make a living document where we can adjust it.
Between us and the board.
Can you say that again?
Repeat that?
That we as ProSab become the conduit between the public and the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Maybe definitely try and identify all these people who have offered, to get involved. That would be great to have this list, and maybe they can start to form a committee that could be the drivers of this. That would be great.
Right.
Okay, sounds good. I'll get something together by next meeting. Share it with you all before that.
Thank you.
And I think we just want to keep in mind at every stage of this process that, if we're going to be, natural forested area with massive slabs of concrete, that we be doing it in the most sustainable, ecologically friendly, or environmentally, even beneficial way possible. Just because, fundamentally ripping up trees and replacing it with concrete doesn't, on the face of it, seem to be particularly in line with Netherlands' goals for environmental sustainability. So I think we need to be very mindful of that throughout the process and make sure that any group that gets formed underneath ProSab, any parent group or whatever subcommittee gets formed, recognizes that as part of their mission.
Yeah, I mean, I think so far this plan is for dirt and wood, so no concrete included in this one yet. I know that was what they were. Yeah.
And we could even do the whole, for every tree uprooted, plant 2 more somewhere in town.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that would be
I
fun
think
too. Just
smart.
maybe like to do a little bit of research, look at plans, because I've seen some of the wooden berms that people can build. There's a lot to do to make it more sustainable.
Yep.
And to be clear, I don't understand, but I guess I can read your document, Daniel, is an excavator has promised to clear some space out, but I don't think it'd be that same person who would actually be building the features in the park itself, or am I wrong?
Because it's possible, yeah, because it's dirt. The layout, it would be dirt. It's like, all the dips and the rises, and so they would be responsible for most of it.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Any more comments on the potential bike park? I know we've got a lot to maybe look at pictures, things that you would like to see in that area as far as the bike park goes, and maybe research a bit about sustainability, and then just start getting in touch with people, trying to get them to maybe join our next meeting when we discuss this in more detail.
Definitely. And I think
clarify.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, this is entirely meant for non-motorized bikes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, to your point, Jesse, this is, or probably more of a Tashna's point, I think designing the park itself is something that should be stakeholder driven, and the people who are going to be using the park are the people who should be figuring out what the park should look like and how it should work. And to that end, I think it'd be great to get some youth involved as well, not just a bunch of parents saying, no, that ramp looks too dangerous or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. A lot of outreach, I think, is the best thing that we could be doing in the next few weeks about it.
Yeah, cool. Just a minor segue to your next agenda item, if we're ready to move on, is I think in the past, in terms of the community and social trails that we've gotten some feedback on up near that Caribou Ridge area, that I think some people talked about some old social trails being kind of blocked by private landowners. I talked to one such landowner the other week, and he said that both he and, I guess, Monica is the name of the developer now behind the Caribou Ridge subdivision. Does anyone know her, or can confirm whether I've got the name right? At any rate, they said they were aware of some of the community concerns about closing those trails off, but they're willing to pay for some connector trails that kind of circumvent their private property and connect to the Nederland town trail system.
Wow.
And I think they need some guidance on the right way to do it, and kind of where we want to connect from and to. But it sounds like from where this bike park is being planned, that would be a great connector between the trail that leads up behind the elementary school to the trail that leads back down to the rink and the tennis court area.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I wonder if we could get one of our trails maps into the hands of these developers and see if they can maybe work with us about the trail locations then.
Yeah, so I shared my details with one of the homeowners, and he said that he would put me in touch with the developer, but that hasn't happened yet. And when that does happen, I said I'd introduce them to some of the folks here on ProSab to kind of get that process started.
Is that something, if there would be a trails exchange, is that something that we might want to bring SAB into as well? Because it would be new trail development. They may have some insight or something that might be beneficial as well.
Yeah, I think across-board communication is always going to be important as we move forward, especially with their expertise on noxious weeds. But it does make me think a little bit about the map too. I definitely would like us to work on that trails map a little bit more. And we were never able to find the blank version of it, like with the overlay of the plats. So I'm going to add that into my to-do list of things just to look up. Because that would be really great just to even be able to give out to some of these homeowners that you're talking to for discussion.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I wouldn't know where to look to find the raw version of the trails map, but certainly the trails map that appears in the old 2021 vision document is a good place to start.
I think there should be one on just, if you go to like the Town of Nederland ProSab main website page, I think if you scroll down, there should be one, like the older one, the kind of the raw one that we've been using, which is a little outdated. I think it's from about eight years ago.
Okay, I'll have a look.
Yeah, and that's the one kind of we've been using for the trails master plan, which we'd like to update because it wrongly identifies trails when the trails are actually you're just walking on a road.
I think it may be, I don't know if this is the right word, but it may be a mandate that the some of these documents need to be updated, and they need to be what's the word, like they need to be ratified or accepted or something, like every 10 years or something, because they've always only been in draft form and never updated. So the time has come that needs to be finalized.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's the kind of bump up the list, because the trails map is pretty huge. Even the visitor center has started using like the old ProSab trails map too. So, John, did you have unless anyone else has something kind of pertinent to this? I know John has an update on some of the Eldora area trails.
Yeah, so I called and talked to the Eldora folks just about in the next summer with, potential COVID and all the impacts on the Hesse Trail and, why isn't the Jenny Trail open? And they're definitely interested in having that open, but I guess their situation is, they're leasing from the Park Service and it's for the winter. And so, if they want to open up that parking lot, and they would be interested in that, because I'm just guessing, I don't know, but they would make $5 of parking or whatever it is, but they got to go through the whole Park Service and do a report on the impact and all that kind of stuff. So they weren't against it at all, but they're like it would take a while to get that summertime opening of the access point, and mostly because they got to go through all this Park Service stuff. That's kind of what I took away from it, and I basically told them, well, we're at ProSab are interested in if you guys need assistance or anything like that. So between that's the Park Service. And I'm not sure how Boulder County ties into that at all, if at all.
John, you're saying Park Service. Do you mean the Forest Service?
Excuse me. Yes, Forest Service.
Okay.
Yeah, the feds, basically. So, I don't know if that's something that we want to push or not push, but that's basically their situation is that they got to deal with the Forest Service and changing permits and that kind of stuff.
Thank you. No, that's really interesting because I know Netherlands deals with the impact from Hesse and the overuse of Hesse and the parking that spills over into the rest of town. That could really relieve quite a few of the burdens from that.
Yeah, I think so, because they've got a massive parking lot. And so, it's something that could happen. But again, it would just be a long-term thing where you got to do the impact statement and this kind of stuff.
Me and IGA.
Yeah.
I
so
think
I guess the short answer is that I don't think anything will get fixed for this summer. But if this is something we want to think about and tie it into our long-term plans, and maybe we should start that talk. Maybe find out who the Forest Service people are, and see if they're interested in, like you said, the IGA thing. And hey, is this something we all agree is a good idea for everybody because it relieves some of the pressure off the other parks?
Yeah, was it last meeting maybe that Miranda was saying that we have a good relationship with our kind of a Forest Service liaison person who we've been in communication with in the past? Is that right?
Yeah, Matt Henry is his name, who we work with pretty regularly.
Because I think we can, if it's important to ProSab, then I think we can maybe help Eldora in this kind of exploration by making the right introductions or whatever if they don't have them already.
Yeah.
Well, I think they no doubt are intimately familiar with the Forest Service, but it would be helpful if, hey, there's some town backing also. That might help because we're the ones coming up with the idea, and it's not that Eldora's coming up with the idea.
Yeah, I think that would be something maybe to keep it up to date with Eldora with, and Matt Henry and Angela G, isn't it? G, she's the.
I think you're right.
Sorry.
I've only really interacted with Matt. He's the main one.
Yeah.
Well, does he have a regular communication with you? Is this something like at the next time you guys get together we could talk about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like our communication is more of like an as needed when things come up, but he's very responsive. So we could just kind of start a separate conversation with him about this.
I mean, how about we also open this up with the DDA too, since they're working so hard on parking right now, and this could really alleviate some summer parking issues. So maybe try and bring them in. And I know they've, is Brent still on the DDAs?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Okay. So that might be something to kind of follow up with too.
And I think that, like I said, I think their incentive is, they'll pick up revenue from parking is their goal. I mean, obviously they need to see something out of it.
Yeah. They should build a summer gondola.
Yeah, I think they're considering what their summer activity plan might look like. But I think that right now my understanding is that their concession with Boulder County limits them to winter activities. It's not the Forest Service necessarily who demands no summer activities. It's actually Boulder County.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is, because I knew they said something about Boulder County, but I couldn't figure out what it was exactly.
Yeah. Does this topic feel like the type of thing that we should include maybe as a special topic or agenda item for a future ProSab meeting where we invite some of the relevant parties?
Yeah, I think that would be fantastic if we could get a presentation from somebody, just an informational discussion. That would be fantastic.
I'm a little unclear about how this interfaces with ProSab.
Well, I was looking at it as at the ProSab meetings, they were saying, hey, there's too many people at HESI. We got issues with people doing trails and parking. And, it kind of came to us at previous meetings. And that's why I was just thinking, well, what if there was another spot that's got parking already and trails and things like that? It could alleviate some of that.
So this is recreation and the parking that ensues. That's how
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's
yeah.
purely the numbers of cars that are all trying to be in one spot and diversifying it into two spots and enhancing the recreation.
Yeah, I mean, the parking overflow from HESI spills into the high school, into the RTD, all over town in the summer.
Yeah. Okay. So it's more in terms of summer. So this is something so the main focus is not for us is not really the recreational aspect as it is the parking issue. So we should collaborate. We should have a collaboration with the DDA. The
this really
DDA
is
is the parking aspect, and the recreation, as far as ProSab goes, I mean, it's really not an issue for us. The main issue would be the parking, which would be the interface with the DDA, not ProSab.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally relevant for ProSab, though. It's a parks and recreational open space issue.
Okay.
I that it really is up DDA's wheelhouse in that they have Brent Trugaskis on their board from Eldora, and that seems like the right place for that conversation to start. They're the ones who are very, very concerned about parking in town, right? And that might, they want to reserve as many spaces as possible for their businesses, so that it makes sense for them, I think, to address it. And I think ProSab can be here to support, but obviously HESI is far outside of our jurisdiction, right, as a board. So, I mean, there's not much we can actually do, but we can be there and support and offer ideas and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, there's certainly incentive to open that area up to parking. Does anyone else have some maybe things they want to add about the Trails Master Plan or future ideas for how we're going to pursue that?
Yeah, I had a question really for this board, and whether or not there is appetite to pursue something like a South Barker Reservoir Trail, a trail that goes from Chipeta Park all the way far as close to the dam as we can get. That would have access points all along the Big Springs neighborhood as those roads kind of come down and approach the shoreline. And if that's something that we would like to look into and pursue, because right now, for being such a small town, we have an entire neighborhood that's almost entirely cut off from the rest of town in Big Springs, right? There's only one access road, and it's quite treacherous to walk. It's treacherous to bike. It's very steep, so it's not easy for folks who might, have accessibility issues, or who might be older, who might be younger, to get from Big Springs into town by foot or non-motorized transport of any kind. So to me, it seems like a kind of problem area in town that is kind of something we can address, maybe by addressing maybe a trail project that would be a multimodal trail that would be accessible and not too steep of a grade, that follows the South Barker coastline.
Eric, are you talking about making a trail where what's considered South Beach, along South Beach?
Big Springs?
The area by the spillway is referred to as South Beach, where people
Yeah.
go fishing and stuff. Is that the area you're talking about for
Well,
trail?
I'm talking about extending a trail further to the east from there that connects to Chipeta, connects the Big Springs, that all those houses up on that hillside there, that
Yeah.
they all, all the roads come down to they peter out, right? They stop, and then there's no access to the shoreline itself, and there's no trail there that gives people access to town. You have to go up, back up the hill and then back down Big Springs Drive, which is not, it's just, frankly, it's not a really particularly walkable road, right? It's narrow, it's dangerous at night when cars are coming around the bend. It does not connect our town trails wise, right? We don't have connection points there like we do maybe in other parts of town. To me, it seems like a pretty significant issue for sustainability.
Like as a Big Springs resident, I really like that idea, but I just can't imagine getting past the private property issues.
Yes, the question for me would be, what are the private property issues? Where are there potentially access points? And is it possible to get a trail that navigates not maybe right up against the shore, right, but that somehow winds close to the shoreline through Big Springs without being too steep?
Yeah, okay, just like maybe various little access points that go down to it. Interesting.
And I wonder if it would be possible to build up a berm of sorts, so you wouldn't even have to deal with private property in most situations.
Yeah.
It seems like that could be plausible, and I think that's a fantastic idea. Because just to have another continuous trail that's longer than a mile that people could make as an excursion, from the center of town, and do a whole day, 1-2 hour hike from the center of town would be really cool.
Yeah, as a conceptual plan, I really like ideas for connectivity for residents who live up here. That would be fab to be able to make a 1.5 mile journey into a 0.8 mile. That would be great. I would definitely walk it more than I would ride.
Right, exactly. If we're talking about making our town more sustainable, then the only really way to get people out of their cars is to make it possible for them to actually walk or bike. And now the way Big Springs is, only people that have a certain physical capacity are going to be able to do that. And I think we need to think about, making that more accessible for much more of our residents. So, I mean, I would really love a South Barker project of some kind. And I just wanted to see if this board was willing to pursue something like that in the, medium to long term.
Hey, Jesse, can you just throw that in your GoCo grant real quick? Just toss it in there. See what happens.
That would be so good. No, that's a super valid long-term goal, though. So I think that's a great way just to talk about the Trails Master Plan. It's like let's kind of prioritize. There's a fair few little goals, trails goals on that plan. So let's rehabilitate that and revise it and figure out what are our needs for 2020 and beyond.
Yeah. After looking at our trails map. Oh, sorry, who is that?
Nope, that was it. Sorry, I just said walkability.
Looking at our trails map, it seems like we could connectivity between certain points across town, and so if we can connect Mud Lake to Town Hall, if we can connect the West Magnolia trailhead that's near the high school, if we can make sure that there's some connectivity there to Town Hall, and if we can try to get connectivity from the very east end of the Big Springs neighborhood to Town Hall, then really we cover all of town, and we can make sure that the grades are acceptably shallow and the paths are wide enough and maintained. Then we could have a real walkable kind of alpine environment that I think would be really great for residents and for visitors alike.
Like it.
Yeah, I'm happy to throw my hand up to be on a Trails Master Plan kind of subcommittee. I don't think I'm in a position to chair it or run with it, but I'm an interested party and I'm happy to collaborate and contribute to it. It seems like that's probably the right way to move forward, is to find a subset of people, whether from this board or from kind of the greater stakeholder kind of community, to just start looking at the ways in which the old master plan needs to be adapted for a future master plan.
Yeah. Maybe if two members of this board, along with a member of, I mean, I hate to say it, I can't even say the word staff, but along with a member of staff, I don't want to give staff any more work, but if two members of this board and a member of staff as kind of an advisory capacity to us could lay out in broad strokes what we would like to accomplish connectivity wise, and then I think we can bring in stakeholders from those specific neighborhoods that have, you know, vested interest in how that trail might operate for them. We bring them in to fully flesh it out, but first we need to lay out the broad strokes, I think.
Sure,
Yeah,
I think
you've done a good job with that. Yeah. Westmag to town, Mud Lake to town, Big Springs to town.
And I think it's partly about connectivity. I think Natasha raised a point last time. It's not just about connectivity, though. It's also partially about recreation and activity for kind of people of different population types who live in town, who might be maybe less mobile or something like that. So I think there's a bunch of different priority areas that we could list as things to focus on. And yeah, I'm happy to be one of those two people to kind of help pull that together.
What strikes me about this conversation, it gets back to all the surveys that we did after taking heat from the Barker Meadows fiasco, at looking at what we need to work on as a group. And two of the major things of, I think, the 5 things that were identified was communication with and public involvement. And the more we can take the burden off of ProSab for doing everything from beginning to end, the more it addresses those concerns of communicating with the public and stakeholder environment, and moving forward with everything that we do. I think it's important to keep that in mind. We need to get the public, we need to get community members actively involved and in moving these things forward. And ProSab serves as the intermediary before the various stakeholders and the board.
So how would you encourage public involvement, Natasha? What would you suggest?
Well, I think quite a bit of it has already been discussed this evening. The first thing is letting people, identifying stakeholders in the community and using the bike park as a perfect example. Parents have come forward and say, we want this, and so they're the stakeholders. They're made aware of this. They came to us, but for other things like the connective trails, we could go to the public, explain what's before us.
Like, do you recommend maybe a website or the newspaper, just like a specific way that you would communicate to the public?
Well, the newspaper, website, social media, the various informal anti-social media groups in town, just getting the word out.
Yeah.
The stakeholders need to take the initiative, and ProSab will be the conduit. ProSab should not be the beginning, the end, and everything in between, as it has been. stakeholders, if people are motivated, they want things to happen, they need to step up, and we will help them make it
That's true, but
happen.
we also have our own. ProSAP has a mission statement, and that is to fulfill the goals, established in the master plan.
Yes, but we
And then,
need to get the community involved.
Well, I think we could do. I mean, if Brian, if this subcommittee is you and I think we could put together something that was designed input, right? Not put together something that's like a closed plan that says, here's what we're going to do. Do you like it or not? But instead, put together a sort of open concept of an idea that is designed to solicit input, right? Rather than kind of close it off. So I think we can pretty easily and pretty clearly put something together that at least gives a starting point for conversation with people, because people are coming from so many different angles, and I think we need to have at least that one core thing that they're all talking about, and start from there and see where the conversation goes.
Yep. About that. And we wouldn't be starting from scratch. We do have an older master plan. So I think we essentially, there's a, for lack of a better gender non-specific term, there's a straw man in place that we can get people to respond to say, yeah, I still agree that whatever we had as a high priority back then is still the priority now, or whatever. But yeah, I think that's getting the community to respond to something that exists is going to be easier than getting the community to generate ideas from scratch.
Yeah, when you leave it open-ended, it becomes very difficult to pin down kind of a direction. But I like that. I like that idea about kind of involving as many people, and then be ready for some, an issue. Maybe the South Barker Reservoir Trail. I could imagine might become a contentious debate issue with property owners, and that's part of the stakeholder discussions. That's okay.
Right, but at the same time, maybe if we do have a, then we can. Not like a fully conceived plan, but we do have this idea, right? I mean, being connected to town is not necessarily bad for property, right? I mean, having that connectivity can even increase property value. So it's not necessarily like we can make this something, I think, that serves everyone and all interests, rather than trying to, hit it as a this versus that kind of project, right? I think it can really bring everyone together and just make sure they're not left out of the conversation.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Hey, is Miranda still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're there. So can you give us any sense of like the number of people who responded to things like the Envision 2030 surveys and other stuff, just so we can temper our own expectations for how much community involvement we might get in something like this?
Yeah. So since Envision 2030, we started collecting feedback, which was about August. So in 3 months, we have about 50 surveys.
Okay.
It's definitely slow to start and gain more momentum, but that's probably what we'll end up with, is just between 50 and 60 when we're done.
Okay. So I think that, and you put out a pretty good push for participation when the time was right. So for something like this, to get folks to respond to trail master plan updates or whatever, I think that we might, except for people we proactively reach out to because we know they might be interested or have some expertise on the subject, I think we'd be looking at maximum 20 people who express an opinion on what we're talking about.
Yeah, it could well be, depending on direct outreach.
And I do think
I know the last
be worthwhile direct. Sorry.
Feedback. Carry on.
Shout to those property owners and to the people whose properties might be or who live adjacent to those areas, and just get them involved right off the bat.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Can we use, I know this has been done in the past, but put some kind of a notice on the water bills that go out to people? How often do those go out to people?
So they go out quarterly, and that's definitely an option. So like the bills that went out for October, you'll see have Envision 2030 on them. So Atashna, the next time they'll go out, it's going to be in it's January though, so you're waiting 3 months.
Is there any other vehicles besides the water bill that goes out more often that can be used as a communication vehicle?
No,
I've had direct
fortunately not.
mailing.
But do a
From
direct mailing, it's going to cost about $300 though.
Yeah, direct mailings are expensive and the return rate on them is less than 5%. They're a
Well, I'm
waste
just
of
saying,
money.
like when Wild Bear did their thing, they wanted to have the property owners that were in the area voice their opinion. So it wasn't direct mailing to everybody. It was to the, 38 properties that were around the Wild Bear transit. So we're not talking big money here.
Yeah, it's targeted. It's targeted. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So to that end, I mean, we would just want maybe a little informational kind of flyer about what the goals and visions, and maybe try and get some feedback about what people's priorities would be from those.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was really cool because it's like, oh, I got this announcement ahead of time, what their ideas were, and then when they put it on the ballot or whatever it was, I forget what I had to sign or something, like this sounds good to me. They had the buy-in of all the 38 people or whatever that were around that area, so it seems like a good way to go.
Yeah.
Yep, I just think we need to put something together to send them to begin with. So, if Brian, you're willing to be on that subcommittee, I'd be willing to join you. Nederland Trails Master Plan and articulating a more simplified maybe, because I think also those master plans are very daunting to people. Like they don't want to sit there and read this 20, 30, 40 page PDF about trails. They want to know what exactly it is are you proposing to do and why do you want to do it. And I think we can put that together easily.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Yeah, let's catch up on that because I'm envisioning something. Did anyone respond to the Town of Nederland art survey?
I did.
I did.
So I don't know who designed that, but I thought it was a really well designed survey. I'm envisioning something that would take people like 4 to 5 minutes online to have some sort of input into the first time around, and then more in-depth conversations with the quite interested stakeholders.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll definitely look into the map, see if we can't get a really clear map maybe, and then figure out a way, maybe you and Eric can look into how to use visuals. I know people are really into just looking at the maps. I know that is really helpful for people. So for them to personally identify where they would be interested in seeing these connections made.
All right, cool. Eric, I'll follow up with you offline and we can figure out a good time to get together. And then, Jesse, if you track down some kind of map that we could use as a basis of a conversation starter, great. If not, I think we could just mock stuff up using available resources on the internet and drawing lines like maybe our commander-in-chief did with a certain hurricane forecast a few months ago.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you. Which kind of segues nicely, unless we've got any more comments on open space and trails. Just a little last touch on Envision 2030 so far. I know I just have to apologize. I have not done it yet. Sorry, Miranda. I'm so ready. I've written out my notes.
Do it as a person, aside from ProSab, like we talked about.
I know.
No, we're still, we just, obviously, the 46 I think I have is not representative of our community. And so we're still just trying to do one last round of push public feedback. That's why we added it to the October water bills. So we'd love, we're really obviously need to kind of wrap up the public outreach, but we're just kind of doing one final ditch effort in October to get more feedback. So ask that you, separate from ProSab, and your friends and family, go on and complete that survey. They can do it online. They can come to town hall. They can call me. Lots of ways to do it. We just love it for people to just spend a couple of minutes giving us their feedback.
What's the deadline, Miranda?
Well, not really one, but end of October. We've got to move on to the next phases.
Okay.
So end of October.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a shame that we're not able to do the in-person or any kind of open forum discussion or like town hall about it. But I imagine even if we did a Zoom one, that not many people would show up. So it would be a whole lot of effort for.
I mean, I'm
for not
pleasantly
much.
surprised. Yeah, I say we haven't done a push in a little bit, but I see people, like I got 2 today, so they're still coming. It's just obviously 50 is a lot more, in terms of getting that direct feedback, and kind of looking at Envision 2020. There was a handful of people involved, so it's pretty normal for our community. It's easy to give feedback in that online setting, so we just love for people who maybe aren't actively engaged in what's going on with town, still feel like they have an opportunity to give their feedback. But once I present it all to the board in November, if they feel like we need to just keep going on trying to get community input, then that's what we'll do.
Like, is there any way to maybe do like a cheap version that's like half the size with really easy questions? I don't know. Well,
people none of them are required. So what I've noticed is that people skip a lot of them.
Okay.
Like one of them I got today. So there's 10 questions total. The person only answered 2 of them, which is totally fine. And so none of them are required. You can just put even, a number in one of them and it'll come to me.
Yeah.
So I think people, I have felt like people, if they weren't prepared to answer all the questions, they didn't, and they just answer what they were comfortable with.
That's good. Yeah. So just to not feel intimidated that they have to do like a real thorough thing. They can, if they have just a sentence they want to say, they could say that.
Right. Exactly.
The very first Envision that took place in 2000 was the largest one that attendance wise, and I believe there were about 200 people there. That was facilitated by Gary Sanfisone. The 2010 one, I think there may have been maybe 100 people. So for the 2021, given the circumstances, that the number of responses that you've received seems not to be that far out of line in terms of being discouraged. And you can only have this open for just so long. I mean, if people are motivated, they're going to respond. At a certain point, you just need to close it despite the low numbers.
Mm-hmm. I agreed. And so we just felt like, because we had an opportunity to put them on the bill for October, that we would keep it open for one more month. But yeah, no, agree. We have to move on. I think obviously COVID doesn't help. Of course, if we could have done this the way we wanted to back in March, we would have had numerous open public forums with Gary, and we had a really well-designed plan and kind of had to toss that out the window. So we're adjusting like most municipalities and just trying to figure out a way to do this in that remote format. And it's just going to take longer than I think a normal visioning process would have had COVID not been a thing.
Yeah. All right. So let's all go do that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to wind down here. I have a few more things to add to the application for tomorrow. So that's what I'm going to do. Anything else? Other items?
Motion to adjourn.
Woo.
Second.
Who's going to second? All right. Great. 8:32. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you,
very
everybody.
much. That's very helpful.
Much, guys.
Productive.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers.
Good night, y'all, and everybody be safe.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Take it easy.
Bye.